Picking up with Unit 3, stress responses and stress management, we're going to talk about anxiety, we're going to talk about coping skills, all the anxiety disorders, crisis today. So what is stress? Everyone experiences stress. Y'all are all probably stressed right now with all the tests and stuff y'all got coming up. But certain things are going to be more stressful to others. Something that's stressful to me might not be stressful to you. And in the long term, stress that continues makes us sick, physically and psychologically. It weakens our immune system. So as nurses, we need to promote a healthy environment. We want it to be calming. We want to teach our patients coping skills. We want successful coping now in the moment. And then in the future, what happens if something similar happens again? We watched this video and talked about what happens when we feel stressed. I actually just had a patient yesterday, school nursing, who felt stressed. They sent her to the nurse because she was with complaints of chest pain. 100% had a history of panic attacks, right? Her heart rate, 125, 130, maybe up to 135 at some point in time. She was sweating. She couldn't focus. She had no attention. She was having trouble concentrating. She had no coping skills. What do you do when you feel stressed? I just need my mom. And it's going to vary depending on the person, but that's a lot of what we see when we talk about severe anxiety. There's a bunch of theories, right? Stressors, something that causes you stress. It could be I'm worried about something, or it could be I'm actually sick, and getting sick taxes the body. Flu is a stressor. Fight or flight, do we stay and fight the tiger or do we run away? General adaptation system, hey, something's going on, right? That alarm stage. Resistance, your body continues to deal with it, but we're hyper aroused. We're ready for the next thing to keep coming. And then finally, exhaustion, right? You're tired physically and mentally, and our immune system is decreased. We have no immune system. Eustress is good stress, and bad stress is distress. Distress is honestly bad because we can't function. Eustress can help us function. Eustress is that, I did really good on this last test, but I just need to keep it up just in case. So I need to focus and work harder. Eustress. Physiologic stress is to environment, right? My phone says it feels like it's 101 degrees outside. If I go outside right now, I'm going to be stressed from the heat. Psychological stress, hey, someone just was diagnosed with cancer and I'm afraid they're about to pass away, right? I don't know if I'm going to lose my job. I hate my boss. I don't want to go to work. Not true. I love Galen, but example of psychological stress. Perception. Things that stress me out now at middle age are completely different than things that stressed me out when I was in my early 20s. But also our culture, our lifestyle, where we are, right? I always joke about my first world stress. I'm stressed because Amazon isn't going to get me something here tomorrow, and I'm going to have to wait 3 days for Amazon to deliver it. Totally different people than living in third world countries. Some people just have anxious personalities. Freud would say it was passed on from their mother. Social support. Some stressors you don't have anyone to turn to. Who's going to help you bury that body? Culture emphasizes certain problems of living more than others. But at the same time, some cultures are also going to interpret emotional problems differently. And spirituality and religion in general, regardless of which one, help people cope with stress because most religious beliefs promote hope and optimism. So we talked about stress busters. I posted a list of a bunch of coping skills. I hope y'all are using them. We have different ways to measure stress. I think it's table 10.3 in your textbook, right? How bad in the last 6 months have things changed? And we have to remember that's a generalization because all of us are going to perceive things differently. Maybe you moved, but it was a good move. That might be a little bit of stress for you, but Riley and In and Out, I love talking about Riley and In and Out. She moved and it was a bad move. She didn't want to move and she really struggled. So for her, it would be different. What coping skills are in place? We have to see health-sustaining habits are things you're doing in the long run. Are you eating a good diet? Are you getting exercise on a daily basis? Do you like your family? Do you like your friends? Do you have hobbies? Social support. Who is going to help you bury that dead body? So relaxation techniques. Relaxation techniques, honestly, like when we talk about deep breathing and a lot of stuff, we want to do this, right? Meds, when it comes to anxiety, are a band-aid for many individuals because we have to teach those coping skills. We can't just give a med first and then do coping skills. We have to teach coping skills, right? Biofeedback, that's that like Fitbit, your Apple Watch. It'll be like, hey, here's your heart rate. Let's do some deep breathing. Breathe along with me. And you can see your heart rate changing. That's at the super simplest, right? It has feedback in biofeedback. It tells you how your body is doing. Extreme things, they'll hook you up to things that track your heart rate, your blood pressure, your sweating. But it shows you this is what happens when you breathe this way. You can actually see your body calming down. So like the girl I had at school nursing the other day, I had the pulse ox on her. I'm like, look, we're talking through. We were doing some guided imagery. We were doing some deep breathing exercises. I'd be like, hey, I can see your heart rate going down. And as she did these, we can see the heart rate going from the 120s and the 130s down into the 90s. So deep breathing is just what it says. There's a whole breath, right? Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4. You can breathe like a bear. Me and this little 4th grader the other day were doing birthday cake breathing, right? We were taking a big breath in and holding it so we can blow out all of our candles on our birthday cake. Guided imagery, close your eyes. Pretend you're on a beach. Feel the sun, hear the waves. Progressive relaxation, sometimes you can tighten muscles by group and then relax them. We all know what meditation is. I'm not a meditation nurse. Not my thing. So reducing stress, right? Physical exercising, walking 20 minutes a day, listening to calming music, practicing your deep breathing, having a pet for social supports. My dogs drive me up the wall. However, I love nothing more than when they come curl up next to you, right? Cats, all sorts of things. We got all these cool videos you can watch on this if you want to. On what these are. Journaling is another good one. Not my jam, but some people love it. We used that yesterday with the 10-year-old who I was working with. Crisis and disaster. So crisis is any event that leads to an unstable or dangerous situation. It could be individual. It could only affect me. Or maybe it's a tornado that goes through my neighborhood and it's going to affect my neighborhood. Or it could affect a specific group of people within society. Crisis intervention is what we do. It's the short-term strategies that we're going to do to keep the client, whether an individual group or society, safe and to reduce anxiety. Now, different things come into play when we talk about crisis because the perception of your threat, your past experiences. If you were in a horrible car accident 2 years ago, a near-miss car accident might be very traumatic for you compared to someone who's just like honking on their horn and throwing up the middle finger and yelling F you. It's going to be different. Culture also plays a role because what is stressful in some cultures is not in others. Support system, right, will always come into play. Who can you turn to? Then that's a very long word one. But then also coping mechanisms. What coping mechanisms is everyone using? Do they have adaptive coping mechanisms or are they stuck with maladaptive, right? Maladaptive, drinking, maxing out every single credit card at Target. Adaptive, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm feeling really stressed. I'm going to take a boxing class. Different types of crisis. Maturational, right? That's Erickson. As you grow up, different things are happening. Have to move out of my parents' house. I have to get a job. For me, one time it was I have to buy socks. All of a sudden I realized no one is buying me socks. And I had to go to the store and buy myself socks. Right? And that, as silly as it sounds, was one of those where it's like, I guess I'm a grown up and I'm on my own now. Situational crisis, unanticipated. But what we have to remember when we're talking about situational versus adventitious, well, the situational is unanticipated. It's something that's not crazy. I expect that at some point in time, my parents are going to die. They can't live forever. But I don't know when that's going to happen. If all of a sudden my parents were in a sudden car accident, that would be a situational crisis. Now, an adventitious crisis is not something you would expect to happen at all, right? Hurricane Harvey, Katrina, September 11th, right? A school shooting. Oh, well, they put that as crime of violence. Honestly, that's freaking terrorism. But that's me going, right? But anything maybe personal, like a rape. And that's the big difference kind of between the two. Adventitious crisis, hurricane, terrorism, school shooting, situational crisis, death, divorce. Situational is within the realm of things we expect to happen as a part of everyday life. We just don't expect it to happen today or tomorrow. So different phases of a crisis, right? In the first phase, it happens. The anxiety rises. There is a tornado, right? I know this tornado is coming. The tornado comes through, destroys my house. My anxiety starts to rise, right? It's an adventitious crisis. Oh my gosh, what do I do? How do I get through the night? What defense mechanisms do I use? How do I deal? Phase 2, I'm trying to restore balance to my life. I'm trying to get through the process, but I just can't. What are the next steps? It can escalate to severe anxiety or panic, right? My trial and error is failing. It's not working. I'm in fight or flight. I got to get through this. How do I survive? Phase 4, everything is overwhelmed. And honestly, if a tornado went through my house, I would go through these 4 phases super fast when it comes to overwhelming anxiety. And at phase 4, if it gets to the part where our coping's not working and we're so overwhelmed and I haven't, right? There are some things I should have coping skills for. I should have coping skills to deal with a flat tire. I should not have coping skills to my kids getting shot in my front yard. There's no way to prepare someone for that. So at that point in time, we see in phase 4 depression, confusion, violence, and suicidal ideations. So you can bet that we need to be watching and assessing for suicide in patients during crisis. So when we're assessing, what happened? What brought them in for treatment? How's it affecting their life? Right? Priority assessment questions, suicide. How have you dealt with similar situations in the past? And it's hard to say because I can ask someone, how have you dealt with similar situations in the past? And if it's like my kid was shot, we're not expecting them to have an answer. But how have you dealt with a crisis in the past? Calling their primary healthcare provider, right? Asking about their support system. It's important to know, but it's not a priority. We need to keep them safe and in that moment, right? So when I had that girl, legitimately, she really did and was in the nurse's office at the school yesterday. When she came in and having a panic attack, what have you done before to help you cope when you felt like this, right? She's had panic attacks before. I knew that. What she told me, what have you done before to help you cope? Eventually we found out journaling worked. I write school nursing. I don't got meds to give you. I have nothing. So we got some paper. I found some cute little glitter gel pens that I happen to carry in my backpack because let's face it, they're the best pens ever. And we journaled. And it helped. Right? So what are the coping skills? Positive and negative. What have you done before? Self-assessment. I hate how this color is, but their crisis can affect us. So we need to make sure if we're dealing with a patient in crisis, and if it's hard for us, we're talking about it. Crisis intervention, right? Assess for those suicidal thoughts. Take steps to make the patient feel safe. Listen to the patient. Right? Yesterday, my patient having that panic attack, she kept telling me things, verbal and nonverbal. And I can go off of those to see what I can do. And then the last thing is really we got to identify support and coping mechanisms. Levels of care. Primary, we want to prevent crisis. We want to keep people mentally healthy. Teach coping skills, teach problem solving, eat good food, right? Secondary care, something's happened. That crisis is here. Identify the crisis, get help, keep them safe. Utilize coping mechanisms. That's where that what have you done before comes into play. Tertiary care, the crisis has happened, right? We're going over it. We need to keep the patient involved and engaged. If you were involved in a school shooting, we don't just care for you in that moment. You should have mental health care long term. Are you following up? Are you going to groups? We have different types of crisis intervention, right? 24 hours crisis stabilization. You're here. I'm going to keep you for 24 hours and see what you need. Hotlines, warm lines, mobile crisis services are great. You have an area, they hop up into like little like RVs that have clinics in them and they roll out. Pure crisis service. I'm a veteran and I'm struggling. I can call another veteran who's struggling with something too. There's a lot of pure crisis in addiction. Psychiatric advanced directives. If something goes wrong, this is what I want to do. I am going to cut this one short because it's going to be pretty long. So this was the first half of Unit 3. I will see y'all later for the second half.